The federal courtroom had gone silent, all eyes locked on the woman in the wheelchair. Commander Talia Monroe sat motionless, the silver star gleaming on her lapel. Judge Harold Easton leaned forward, voice sharp as a knife. "Remove it, or face contempt of court." Cameras flashed. Reporters gasped. The sound of her metal hitting the wooden stand echoed like a gunshot. No one in the gallery knew who she really was. No one expected the file that would soon surface. A file powerful enough to shatter a judge's career and expose a secret operation the world was never meant to hear about. Before we dive into this story, where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments. Welcome to Grateful Stories, where tales of compassion and kindness are told. Let's uncover what really happened. The marble steps of Harborview Courthouse rose like a fortress against the gray Charleston sky. Reporters lined the walkway, cameras flashing as the wheelchair eased up the accessibility ramp. Commander Talia Monroe pushed forward with steady arms, the silver star pinned to her lapel glinting under the morning light. Inside, the air was sharp with the smell of polished wood and cold stone. The bailiff's voice carried across the chamber. "All rise for the Honorable Judge Harold Easton." Everyone stood, everyone except her. Talia remained seated, not by choice but by the iron reality of her injuries. Judge Easton swept in, robes flowing, silver hair neatly combed, eyes pale as glass. He paused when he saw her, the decorated pin on her chest catching his attention. Something unreadable flickered across his face, then hardened. He took his seat with deliberate calm. "Commander Monroe," he said, voice cool but cutting, "remove that medal." The words sliced through the silence like a blade. Murmurs rippled across the gallery. The request sounded less like a command of law and more like a sneer. Talia's hand moved slowly to the pin. She unfastened it, holding the star steady in her palm for a breath longer than necessary. Then she placed it on the witness stand. The metallic clink echoed far louder than its size allowed. For a heartbeat, no one spoke. Easton leaned back, satisfied. His thin smile suggested victory. Reporters scribbled notes, their cameras still flashing. To him, it wasn't evidence. It was theater, and she had just been forced to play the role of imposter. But Talia had brought more than her medal. From a folder balanced on her lap, she set a fractured plate of ceramic armor onto the wood, a jagged shard from a Vanguard 214 tactical vest. It had cracked where it should have held, a small, silent reminder that lives were lost because of that flaw. Across the aisle, and Prosecutor Daniel Huxley straightened nervously. He was young, too young for a case of this magnitude. His tie was crooked, his notes shuffled out of order, but he believed her, believed what she had endured. His voice trembled only slightly as he rose. "Your Honor, the witness is here to testify about the performance of Dominion Defense's Vanguard 214 armor." The defense moved first. Victor Langford stood, tall and broad-shouldered, his suit tailored like a general's uniform. His tone dripped condescension. "Your Honor, we challenge the relevance of this so-called expert." He glanced at Talia, then at the jury. "A consultant, not a soldier. Hardly qualified to comment on gear used by our finest warriors." Easton lifted a brow, nodding with practiced gravity. "Proceed." His gaze returned to Talia, thinly veiled disdain in his eyes. Langford paced in front of the jury. "Ms. Monroe, when exactly did you inspect the Vanguard 214? His words emphasized inspect as though she were no more than a factory worker. "Can you prove you've worn it, used it, experienced it under fire?" "I can," Talia answered evenly. Her voice carried calm steel. "I wore it in combat, and I saw it fail." Langford smirked, circling. "Combat, you say? And yet you appear here today as a civilian consultant in a wheelchair. Forgive my bluntness, but you hardly fit the image of objection." Huxley cut in. "Relevance. Overruled," Easton said without hesitation. His gavel struck once. The sound reverberated. "Answer the question." Talia's eyes did not waver. "I fit the image of someone who knows what happens when armor fails." 3 Marines died wearing this vest. She tapped the jagged ceramic plate. It wasn't rated for what killed them. The gallery shifted uneasily. Journalists whispered, pens scratching faster. A pair of Dominion executives in the back row exchanged quick glances. Langford pressed harder. So you expect this court to believe your word, unsupported, that equipment field tested by Dominion's laboratories was somehow defective? She is not unsupported, Huxley fired back, but Easton silenced him with a raised hand. Mr. Langford may continue. The young prosecutor sat, jaw tight. His inexperience showed in the way he gripped his pen. He knew this was slipping. Talia steadied her breathing. She had trained for worse. The wheelchair beneath her creaked softly as she leaned closer to the microphone. Laboratories don't catch everything. On the battlefield, failure isn't measured in percentages, it's measured in lives. Langford gave a mocking laugh, turning back to the judge. Live, she says. Yet she brings no service record, no witnesses, no official proof. His words carried through the chamber, dripping with scorn. Just a story and a broken plate of ceramic. Easton leaned forward again. His eyes narrowed at the metal now lying on the stand. Ms. Monroe, impersonating a decorated veteran is a federal crime. I strongly suggest you refrain from speaking as though you were one. The remark landed heavy. The gallery stirred. Someone coughed uncomfortably. Others avoided looking at her. Talia didn't blink. I am not impersonating anyone. Your Honor. The judge's lips curled. We'll see. The tension thickened, coiling around every word. Huxley shifted in his seat, visibly torn between outrage and caution. Langford smiled as if victory were already secured. Through it all, Talia kept her composure. Her hand rested lightly on the jagged armor plate, the proof that had carried her into this hostile room. And then the doors opened at the back. A man in navy whites entered, ribbons glinting across his chest. He moved with the gravity of decades in command. Admiral Roland Pierce. His arrival drew eyes instantly. Journalists craned their necks. Officers in the gallery straightened without even realizing it. Pierce didn't speak. He simply took a seat halfway down the row, posture rigid, eyes locked on the bench. The camera lens of a reporter caught the moment the admiral, silent and intent, watching the judge. Judge Easton noticed. His face tightened. Just for a second. Then he shuffled his papers as though nothing had changed. But something had. The air in the room shifted, thick with anticipation. The tension was no longer just between Monroe and her accusers. It now stretched across the chamber, tying the fate of a decorated commander to the gaze of a man who knew the truth. Why was the admiral here? What did he bring with him? No one in that courtroom knew yet. The answer would unravel everything. Victor Langford paced like a predator. His voice carried to every corner of the chamber. Commander Monroe, on what authority do you presume to evaluate equipment designed for America's elite? His words dripped with disdain. He gestured toward the jury box as though presenting a simple equation. You are not a SEAL. You are not Special Forces. You are here as a consultant. Nothing more. Judge Harold Easton leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The counsel makes a fair point. His tone cut deeper than Langford's mockery. Frankly, Miss Monroe, I see a civilian who insists on masquerading as something she is not. The silver star still rested on the stand. Easton's lips twisted into something like a grin. That metal, remove it. I will not allow this court to be tainted with stolen valor theatrics. Gasps and whispers burst from the gallery. Reporters lifted their cameras, shutters clicking in rapid bursts. The flashbulbs stung like small explosions across the room. Talia kept her composure. With deliberate calm, she reached down, unpinned the star from her lapel, and set it beside the jagged armor plate. The clink echoed again, sharp, metallic, final. Easton's eyes glimmered with smug approval. At last. Now perhaps we can proceed without these distractions. His words oozed contempt. Langford pressed harder. sensing advantage. Ms. Monroe, you claim to have worn Dominion's Vanguard 214 in combat. Surely you don't expect us to believe that? He turned theatrically to the jury. Look at her condition, wheelchair-bound, consulting from the sidelines. Impossible. Talia's voice remained steady. I wore it, and I saw it crack under fire. Langford scoffed loudly, laughter spilling across the courtroom. Combat fantasy, nothing more. He paced again, hands clasped behind his back. Do you have so much as a single document, a single report, proving you've ever deployed with this equipment? The young prosecutor, Daniel Huxley, rose quickly. His voice shook, but his conviction burned. Your Honor, the witness has clearance limitations. Her record cannot be fully disclosed without proper authorization. Easton cut him off with a hand slash. Then her words remain hearsay. He fixed his glare on Talia again. This court will not entertain fiction. Behind the rows of spectators, Admiral Roland Pierce leaned closer to his phone. He spoke in hushed tones, then slipped a sealed envelope from his leather case. Its red wax bore the stamp of Naval Command. Across the flap, bold letters classified, sealed. At the prosecution table, Huxley's laptop buzzed with a new email. The subject line read, Anonymous Submission, Dominion Test Range Footage. His pulse quickened. He clicked. The video filled his screen. A firing range. The Vanguard 214 mounted on a stand. Standard rounds hammered the plate. Cracks spiderwebbed instantly. Then, a single impact shattered it, fragments spraying across the dirt. Huxley's breath caught. His hand trembled as he paused the footage. Langford kept hammering. Admit it, Miss Monroe. You never wore that vest in real combat. You never served in operational environments. You sit here inventing tales to discredit Dominion defense. Easton nodded, eager to amplify. Answer the question plainly. Yes or no? Talia lifted her eyes to the bench. Her voice was calm, clipped, precise. I wore it during Operation Iron Harbor. She let the words fall like stone, and it did not save 3 Marines who trusted it with their lives. The courtroom froze. For a moment, even the cameras fell silent. The name carried weight, history, shadows. Langford opened his mouth but stopped. His rehearsed smirk faltered. Easton's complexion shifted. His hands tightened on the bench. The name hit him like a bullet he hadn't seen coming. Operation Iron Harbor. Huxley glanced from the judge to Talia, confusion on his young face. He didn't yet understand why the air had thickened so suddenly, but Admiral Pierce did. His eyes narrowed, watching Easton with a knowing calm. The judge cleared his throat, voice suddenly rough. Irrelevant? Strike it from the record. His gavel struck with unnecessary force. The witness will refrain from dramatic storytelling, but his face betrayed him. A twitch at the corner of his mouth, a bead of sweat tracing down his temple. He knew the operation's name. Too well. Langford tried to recover, forcing confidence back into his tone. Your Honor, may we remind the court this witness still presents no verifiable credentials. We ask that her testimony be dismissed entirely. Easton pounced. Noted. Unless substantial evidence is produced, this testimony carries little weight. His voice cracked just slightly on the word evidence. At that moment, Admiral Pierce stood. He adjusted his uniform, metals catching the overhead light. His movements were slow, deliberate, unyielding. Your Honor, his voice carried like a low thunder. Permission to approach as an officer of the United States Navy. Easton's eyes darted, his jaw tightening. State your purpose. Pierce held up the sealed envelope, the red wax glinting under the courtroom lights. This contains classified documentation relevant to the witness. Authorization for release has just been granted. The bailiff hurried forward as Pierce stepped into the aisle. He handed the envelope into steady hands, eyes never leaving the bench. The camera shutters flared again. Reporters leaned forward, straining to capture every detail. The gallery stilled into silence. The envelope crossed to Easton. Its wax glistened as though daring him to break it. On the front, new ink stamped only minutes ago, declassified by order of Naval Command. The judge's fingers tightened around it, knuckles pale. The courtroom held its breath. What was inside? What truth did the envelope carry? The cliffhanger hung heavy in the air, sealing the end of this round. Judge Harold Easton hesitated. The sealed envelope felt heavy in his hands, far heavier than wax and paper should allow. His fingers trembled as he cracked the seal. The courtroom watched every movement. The sound of paper tearing was amplified in the silence. He unfolded the document, eyes scanning line after line. At first, his face flushed red with irritation. Then the color drained. Each page stripped another layer of confidence. By the third sheet, he was chalk white. Admiral Roland Pierce stood ramrod straight in the aisle. His voice rang steady, formal, unshakable. For the record, the file confirms Commander Talia Monroe's service history. 12 years with Naval Special Warfare Development Group, 29 high-value extractions, commendations including the Silver Star, 2 Bronze Stars for Valor, and the Purple Heart. Gasps rustled through the gallery. Reporters leaned forward, pens scratching furiously. Huxley stared wide-eyed, realizing every word reset the narrative he thought he knew. Pierce continued. She was gravely wounded during Operation Iron Harbor. Despite injuries, she led her team in the rescue of 18 hostages. He paused deliberately. Among them was Second Lieutenant Nathan Easton. The name detonated across the courtroom like a charge. Silence smothered the air. Every camera locked on the bench. Judge Easton's jaw fell open. His hands clutched the file so tightly the pages crumpled. Reporters zoomed in on his trembling fingers. In the witness stand, Talia remained composed. Her gaze never left him. The judge who mocked her was now choking on a truth he could not deny. Pierce's voice pressed further. Lieutenant Nathan Easton is the nephew of the presiding judge. The words landed with the weight of a gavel. The gallery broke into murmurs, a swarm of disbelief. Easton slammed his own gavel, demanding order, but the command sounded hollow. His hands shook as the mallet struck wood. The admiral was not finished. He handed a second folder to the bailiff. This one thinner, stamped confidential, communication records. The clerk passed copies to both legal teams. Pages of emails and call logs slid across polished desks. Daniel Huxley's eyes widened as he skimmed the contents. Victor Langford faltered. His rehearsed confidence drained as the words stared back at him. Discredit any testimony related to Iron Harbor. Ensure witness Monroe is neutralized. Each message tied Harold Easton directly to Dominion defense executives. The judge's face collapsed under the weight of exposure. His lips moved as if to object, but no sound emerged. Then the doors opened again. Chief Judge Elliot Morgan entered, black robes flowing with authority. The bailiff's voice cracked as he called the room to rise. Easton didn't move. He looked cornered, frozen. Morgan approached the bench, expression grim. Judge Easton, you will step down, effective immediately. I assume control of these proceedings. The gavel in Easton's hand lowered slowly. He rose stiffly, knees quivering. As he stepped away from the bench, his eyes found Talia. The stare lingered. Fear, recognition, bitterness layered together in one final look. For years he had buried a secret. Now that secret sat before him in a wheelchair, staring back with calm defiance. He was escorted out under the weight of silence. No applause and no noise, just the echo of shoes across marble floors. The Department of Justice wasted no time. Agents filed in, speaking low into radios. 2 approached Talia, asking her to remain after recess. Another slipped through the gallery to speak with Admiral Pierce. Outside the chamber, news crews scrambled. Federal investigation. One reporter whispered into a camera, judicial corruption tied to Dominion defense. During the break, Talia sat in a side room, sipping water. The door creaked. A uniformed officer entered, older, broader in the shoulders than she remembered. Nathan Easton, no longer the frightened lieutenant she had dragged from enemy fire, now a captain, insignia gleaming on his collar. "Talia," he said quietly. His voice carried both gratitude and guilt. "It's been 4 years." She studied him, reading the weight in his eyes. "Long time." "Nathan." He paced before her, struggling to speak. "I owe you an apology. I knew Dominion pushed the Vanguard vest through. I tried to speak up. My uncle shut me down. Then I was transferred to Alaska overnight. Out of sight, out of voice." His confession cut deeper than he intended. He stopped, fists clenched. "I should have fought harder. Instead, you carried the burden alone." Talia's reply was measured, calm. "You were young. You followed orders. I don't blame you for the transfer. I blame the man who orchestrated it." Nathan's jaw tightened. His uncle's shadow had nearly swallowed him. Now he stood determined to break free. "I'll testify this time. Every detail, every conversation he forced me to stay silent about." Her eyes softened just slightly. "Then you'll finish what I started. Not for me, for the ones who didn't come home." A knock interrupted them. A DOJ agent entered, folder in hand. "Captain Easton, Commander Monroe will need statements on the record." Hours later, the courthouse bustled with new urgency. Agents carried out boxes of evidence from Dominion's local office. One executive in a tailored suit was escorted into a black SUV in handcuffs. Reporters swarmed, shouting questions he refused to answer. At Harold Easton's home, another team searched his study. From the printer tray, they pulled a schedule of private meetings with Dominion's CEO. The discovery came not from investigators, but from his own wife, who had quietly provided the key. The montage unfolded in rapid succession. Dominion headquarters raided, computers seized, a chain of suits and ties paraded into custody. The judge's career in ashes, back at the courthouse. Talia wheeled out under dimming afternoon light. The crowd pressed closer, cameras flashing. Huxley shielded her path. Admiral Pierce trailed behind, face set like granite. But beneath the chaos lingered one pressing question. Would the revelations of this day finally change a broken system, or would it vanish into bureaucracy, swallowed like so many scandals before the answer hung unspoken, suspended over Charleston as the sun dipped low? A month later, the nation's eyes turned to Washington. The Capitol dome gleamed under a clear spring sky. Inside, the Oversight Committee chamber buzzed with tension. Cameras pointed at the witness table. Commander Talia Monroe wheeled into position, her uniform dark, her face calm. A hush fell as Representative Carla Jennings, chairwoman of the committee, raised her gavel. "This hearing will come to order." She spoke firmly, voice steady over the restless air. "Today we introduce the Monroe Protocol, a complete overhaul of how our military procures battlefield equipment." The words landed like a strike. Reporters scribbled furiously. Industry executives shifted uneasily. Jennings gestured toward Talia. "The architect of these reforms is sitting before us. She has lived the cost of failure and demands that cost never fall on our troops again." Flashes burst from cameras, flooding the room in bursts of white. Mothers of fallen service members sat silently in the gallery, clutching photographs in their hands. Their eyes followed every word, every movement. Talia adjusted her microphone. Her voice carried across the chamber without wavering. "The current system prioritizes cost-cutting over lives. Contracts are awarded to the lowest bidder, and field testing is minimal. That has to end." She lifted a folder of reports. "The Monroe Protocol requires extended combat testing by real operational units before approval. It establishes a streamlined reporting system so failures are not buried, and it holds executives criminally liable when they knowingly deliver defective gear." The words struck deep. Several committee members leaned forward, brows furrowed. Industry representatives whispered sharply among themselves. Jennings nodded, satisfied. Talia continued, measured and direct. "This isn't about me. It's about the 3 Marines who trusted the Vanguard 214, about every soldier who shoulders their rifle believing their armor will hold. We owe them more than contracts and shortcuts. The cameras flashed again. One mother in the gallery dabbed her eyes, clutching the photo of her son in uniform. The image framed the moment more powerfully than any applause could. When the recess bell sounded, reporters flooded the hall. Nathan Easton, now a captain, found Talia near the elevators. His uniform pressed sharp, his face composed, but his eyes still carried guilt. "You carried me out of Iron Harbor," he said quietly, low enough that cameras wouldn't catch. "Now it's my turn. I'll carry the truth." Talia gave him a long look. "You'll carry the weight." "Nathan, don't drop it." He nodded. "I won't. You protected me that night. Today, I protect the record." The hearing resumed. Witness after witness testified, but the air never cooled. By the day's end, the committee voted unanimously to adopt the Monroe Protocol. The announcement rattled through headlines within minutes. Outside, the crowd swelled. Reporters swarmed. Amid the chaos, one figure stood apart: Elena Easton, wife of the disgraced judge. She approached Talia with quiet resolve. "I filed for divorce yesterday," Elena said, her voice steady but worn. "A broken structure has to fall before it can be rebuilt. That's true for families and for governments." Talia studied her, noting the hard line of grief and determination. "I'm sorry you're caught in this." Elena shook her head. "Don't be. I'm free of lies now. Maybe that's enough." She turned away, slipping back into the crowd. Later that week, Talia traveled alone to Arlington National Cemetery. The cherry blossoms stirred in the breeze, petals drifting like pale confetti over rows of white headstones. She rolled along the gravel path, the squeak of her wheels the only sound. She stopped at one stone: Commander Owen Mallory, United States Navy, Operation Iron Harbor, Silver Star, Purple Heart. Her hand rested on the broken plate of armor she had carried into court. She set it down at the base of his grave, angled carefully against the marble. "You covered us, Owen. You saved me when the vest wouldn't. This piece belongs here." The wind rose, tugging at the flag overhead. Its cloth snapped sharply, echoing across the silent grounds. No crowd gathered, no applause rang, only the whisper of air and the stillness of sacrifice. Talia sat for several minutes, her head bowed, lips moving in a whisper no one else would hear. Then she straightened, her face calm once more. That evening, Charleston's harbor lights flickered outside her apartment window. She moved across the quiet room, medals and reports arranged neatly on a shelf. Her phone lit up on the desk. Subject line: Monroe Protocol, Phase 1 Test Failure Report. She opened it. A red button blinked: Join Call. Her hand hovered only a second. Then she clicked. The screen lit with charts, schematics, and faces of analysts waiting. The fight was not over. She leaned closer to the camera. "Let's get to work." The camera cut on her face, steady as stone, eyes lit by the glow of another battle to come. The story closed with her voice, calm and unwavering. "The battlefield has changed, but the mission continues."